Let's talk about Canada, a country known for politeness, maple syrup, and surprisingly, a fierce trade war with the US over ghee, milk. Beneath the friendly exterior, Canada and the US have been locked in a multi-billion-dollar dairy dispute for years. At the heart of it, Canada's protectionist dairy system, which keeps American milk out with tariffs and quotas, while the US insists on fair access. For Canada, it's about protecting farmers and stability. For the US, it's about breaking into a lucrative market. So grab a glass of milk, this story is about to get complicated and a little absurd. To understand Canada's dairy defenses, you have to meet supply management, a uniquely Canadian system that tightly controls how much milk is produced, sets prices for farmers, and blocks most imports from entering the country. It's a system that shapes every glass of milk, block of cheese, and tub of yogurt you see in Canadian stores. Supply management isn't just a policy, it's a way of life for thousands of Canadian dairy farmers, and it's woven into the fabric of rural communities across the country. The system is designed to ensure that Canadian dairy farmers can make a stable living, while also guaranteeing a steady supply of fresh, local milk for Canadian families. Think of it as a nightclub with a tough bouncer at the door. Only a select few are allowed in, and if you're an outsider, like American milk, you'll have to pay a sky-high cover charge just to get a taste of the action. The bouncer's job is to keep the party exclusive, making sure Canadian farmers aren't crowded out by cheaper imports. This system doesn't just keep foreign milk out, it also keeps the dance floor, Canada's dairy market, orderly and predictable, so local farmers know exactly what to expect. Born in the 1970s, supply management was Canada's answer to a chaotic dairy market. Before this system, farmers faced wild price swings and uncertainty, much like what American farmers still experience today. With supply management, Canadian farmers get stable prices and predictable incomes, allowing them to invest in their farms and plan for the future. It's a system that has helped keep family farms alive for generations, and it's credited with preserving the rural way of life in many parts of Canada. But there's a catch. Canada uses something called tariff rate quotas. This means a small amount of foreign dairy, like specialty cheeses or milk, can enter the country at a low tariff. But once that quota is filled, tariffs skyrocket, sometimes soaring over 200%. These sky-high tariffs make it nearly impossible for most foreign dairy products to compete in Canadian stores, effectively locking out the competition and keeping the market tightly controlled. The result? US dairy products are almost nowhere to be found in Canada, and the prices Canadians pay for milk, cheese, and butter are among the highest in the world. For Canadian farmers, this means security. For Canadian consumers, it means paying a premium for homegrown dairy. And for American producers, it means frustration as their products are kept out. Canadians often see supply management as a form of food security, a way to protect local farmers and ensure a stable supply of quality dairy. But to many Americans, it looks like pure protectionism, a system that unfairly blocks their products and distorts trade. The debate is fierce, with both sides claiming the moral high ground. In the end, it's a classic clash of economic philosophies, stability and security for Canadian farmers and consumers versus the free trade ideals championed by the US. The future of supply management remains a hot topic in trade talks, and the outcome will shape the price and source of every glass of milk poured on either side of the border. Enter the USMCA, the new North American trade deal, which promised US dairy farmers more access to Canada's market. The deal set quotas for American dairy, aiming to open about 3.6% of Canada's market, small but worth billions. US farmers celebrated, expecting a flood of exports north. But soon the US accused Canada of gaming the system, allocating most quotas to Canadian processors, not letting American products reach retailers. It was like winning a ticket, only to find the best seats already reserved for the home team. The US called foul, claiming Canada was undermining the deal. The stage was set for a legal showdown. The US filed a formal complaint, triggering the first USMCA dispute panel. The panel found Canada's quota allocations violated the agreement. Canada couldn't promise access, then block it with red tape. Canada was ordered to fix its system, and for a moment, it seemed the US had won. Canada revised its rules, but the changes were cosmetic. The US wasn't satisfied and the dispute was far from over. The first panel was just the appetizer in a long, repetitive meal. Both sides dug in, ready for the next round. The dairy war was only heating up. Canada's new quota system didn't impress the US. They claimed it still kept American dairy out. The The US requested a second panel, arguing Canada's tweaks were just clever workarounds. This time the panel sided with Canada, ruling the new system didn't technically break the deal. Canada celebrated. The US fumed. The legal whiplash left both sides frustrated, with each claiming victory and injustice. The US had won on principle, lost on specifics. The cheesy war was now a confusing legal maze. Neither side was backing down. The saga continued. Despite two previous panels and countless hours of debate, the US was far from satisfied with the outcome. Determined to push its case further, American officials launched a third panel, this time tweaking their arguments and presenting new evidence in hopes of finally tipping the scales in their favor. The atmosphere was tense, with both sides growing weary of the endless paperwork and mounting legal fees. For Canada, the process was becoming exhausting. Canadian negotiators, already frustrated by the repeated challenges, felt as though they were trapped in a never-ending loop of legal battles, forced to defend their dairy system again and again. Each new round brought more documents, more meetings, and more uncertainty for Canadian farmers and officials alike. When the third panel finally delivered its decision, it was another blow to Canada. The panel sided with the US, ruling that Canada's system still violated the terms of the trade agreement. This decision sent shockwaves through the Canadian dairy industry, raising fears of further concessions and changes to long-standing policies. American dairy groups celebrated the victory, holding press conferences and calling for immediate reforms. But Canada was not ready to give in. Officials in Ottawa resisted making major changes, arguing that their system was fair and necessary to protect Canadian farmers and rural communities. Undeterred, the US pressed on. In 2024 they requested a fourth panel, determined to keep the pressure on and secure greater access to the Canadian dairy market. The legal filings continued to pile up, and both sides braced for yet another round of arguments and decisions. By now the dispute had taken on a surreal quality, almost like a sitcom stuck on repeat. Each episode brought familiar scenes, lawyers trading barbs, officials making statements, and farmers anxiously awaiting the next twist in the saga. The US made it clear they would not back down, vowing to keep fighting until they achieved the market access they believed was rightfully theirs. American trade representatives spoke passionately about fairness and opportunity for their farmers. On the other side, Canada dug in its heels, defending its farmers, its supply management system, and its national interests. Canadian officials argued that their approach was about more than just trade. It was about supporting communities and preserving a way of life. As the legal back and forth continued, it became clear that neither side was willing to give up easily. The paperwork, the arguments, and the tension showed no signs of stopping, leaving everyone to wonder just how many more rounds this dispute would go. By 2025, after 4 official dispute panels, countless late-night negotiations, and a seemingly endless stream of arguments, the United States and Canada find themselves further apart than ever before on the issue of dairy trade. What began as a hope for closer economic ties has instead become a symbol of deepening division, with both sides digging in their heels and refusing to compromise. The air is thick with frustration, and the prospect of a resolution seems more distant with every passing month. For American dairy farmers, the stakes are painfully clear. They see lost revenue, broken promises, and a market that was supposed to open up but remains stubbornly closed. Many have invested heavily in anticipation of new opportunities only to be met with disappointment and mounting financial pressure. The sense of betrayal runs deep, as families who have worked the land for generations now face the possibility of shuttering their farms. For them, this isn't just about trade policy, it's about survival, legacy, and the future of rural America. On the other side of the border, Canadian dairy farmers are fighting for more than just their livelihoods. For them, the battle is about protecting a way of life and defending national sovereignty. They worry that opening their markets further could erode the supply management system that has supported their communities for decades. The fear is palpable. If they give an inch, they might lose everything. Their resolve is matched only by their anxiety about what the future holds. The USMCA, once hailed as a new era of North American cooperation, has instead become a battleground of endless litigation and finger-pointing. What was meant to bring harmony and prosperity now serves as a constant reminder of how difficult it is to balance national interests with international agreements. Each side accuses the other of bad faith, and the spirit of partnership has been replaced by suspicion and resentment. U.S. dairy groups are vocal in their frustration, blaming Canada for hundreds of millions of dollars in lost sales and opportunities. They point to blocked shipments, restrictive quotas, and what they see as unfair trade practices. Press conferences and public statements have become routine as industry leaders demand action and accountability from both governments. Meanwhile, Canadian farmers gather in protest, their signs and voices echoing across rural landscapes. They fear for their livelihoods, their families, and the future of their communities. The anxiety is not just economic, it's cultural and deeply personal. Every new round of negotiations brings fresh uncertainty, and the stakes feel higher than ever. Both sides see themselves as the aggrieved party, each convinced that justice is on their side. The divide is not just political or economic, it's emotional, rooted in identity and pride. Neither is willing to budge, and the standoff has become a defining feature of the North American agricultural landscape. In the midst of all this, there is one group that seems to benefit: the lawyers. As the dispute drags on, legal teams on both sides are kept busy, poring over documents, preparing arguments, and racking up billable hours. For them, the dairy war is a lucrative business, and the longer it lasts, the more they stand to gain. The future promises more of the same: more panels, more legal wrangling, and more frustration for everyone involved. The paperwork piles higher, the meetings grow longer, and the sense of fatigue deepens. With each passing year, the hope for a breakthrough fades, replaced by a weary acceptance that this conflict may never truly end. And so, the great North American dairy war rages on, one cheesy, stubborn battle at a time. The border may be invisible to the cows, but for the people who depend on them, it's a line drawn in milk, pride, and unyielding resolve.